Good morning and welcome. My name is Ben Woollien and I serve on your Sunday Services Committee. I want to thank you all for being here today and extend a special welcome to any visitors. If you would like more information about the fellowship, please visit the welcome table in the fireside room or sign our virtual guest book at uufames.org/guestbook. Whether joining us from home or here in Fellowship Hall, we invite you to stay after the service for coffee fellowship, where you can introduce yourself and join in conversation with kindred spirits. And so on behalf of this caring, nurturing congregation, I welcome each and every one of you to this sacred space. Here, we invite you in to an experience of transformation, hope, renewal, and connections, which may inspire you to understand life in new ways. Thank you for joining us today. And today, we are celebrating the creativity of books and the joy of reading, with messages shared by members of our UU Women's Book Group and by, hopefully, some of you. In the 1980s, our first settled minister, Sidney Amara Morris, pulled together the women of this congregation to help them form affinity groups, which could bring them closer together. And the group that has outlasted them all and is our longest running affinity group at the UUFA has been the Women's Book Group. And Barbie Greenlaw has been moderating the group ever since and has this to share. The members are thoughtful readers and often have stories of their own to tell. Being in a book group engenders careful reading. It encourages digging deeper, appreciating fine writing, and gaining perspective. Opinions may differ, and that is okay. It is a meeting place for our own ideas and those of our book lover friends to be stretched and tested. Some new to the UUFA find the book group a good place to meet people in a relaxed setting, because we are an open group and welcome new members at any time. Thank you to the many women who have made this group such an enriching and rewarding experience, and hurrah for the book lovers, close quote. And thank you to all who have helped to bring this service together. We light our chalice at the beginning of our gatherings to focus ourselves into this sacred space. Today, let its light remind you of these words from Erica Hewitt. Some of us are bringing our best selves to this space, and some of us are bringing our struggling selves, including pieces we might be ashamed of. All of us are welcome here, and all of us are loved. Some of us already have open hearts, and some of us aren't quite there yet, because our hearts have gotten a little beat up this week and might have forgotten how to trust and open. Your heart is welcome here, no matter how bruised. We welcome you among us. All of us are imperfect, but we're here to drop our defenses and trust that what happens in worship is powerful and life-giving. Together, we affirm that this day and our being together can make each of us braver, more compassionate, and wiser than when we woke up this morning. So now let us rise in body or spirit and join in singing our opening hymn, number 361, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In.
Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
Good morning. The name of the book I'm going to read this morning is And Tango Makes Three by Justin Richardson and Peter Parnell, illustrated by Henry Cole. I know we've talked about this before, but some of the books that we read or the stories we tell are pretend. This book really happened. It's a true story. In the middle of New York City, there is a great big park called Central Park. Children love to play there. It has a toy boat pond where they can sail their boats. It has a carousel to ride on in the summer and an ice rink to skate on in the wintertime. Best of all, it has its very own zoo. Every day, families of all kinds go to visit the animals that live there. But children and their parents are not the only families at the zoo. The animals make families of their own. There are red panda bear families with mothers and fathers and furry red panda bear cubs. There are monkey dads and monkey moms raising noisy monkey babies. There are toad families and toucan families and cotton-top tamarin families too. And in the penguin house, there are penguin families. Every year, at the very same time, the girl penguins start noticing the boy penguins, and the boy penguins start noticing the girls. When the right girl and boy find each other, they become a couple. Two penguins in the penguin house were a little bit different. One was named Roy, and the other was named Silo. Roy and Silo were both boys, but they did everything together. They bowed to each other and walked together. They sang to each other and swam together. Wherever Roy went, Silo went too. They didn't spend much time with the girl penguins, and the girl penguins didn't spend much time with them. Instead, Roy and Silo wound their necks around each other. The keeper, Mr. Gramsay, noticed the two penguins and thought to himself, they must be in love. Roy and Silo watched how the other penguins made a home. So they built a nest of stones for themselves. Every night, Roy and Silo slept together there, just like the other penguin couples. And every morning, Roy and Silo woke up together. But one day, Roy and Silo saw that the other couples could do something they could not. The mama penguin would lay an egg. She and the papa penguin would take turns sitting, keeping the egg warm until finally it would hatch. And then there would be a baby penguin. Roy and Silo had no egg to sit on and keep warm. They had no baby chick to feed and cuddle and love. Their nest was nice, but a little empty. One day, Roy found something that looked like what the other penguins were hatching, and he brought it to their nest. It was only a rock, but Silo sat carefully on it and sat and sat. When Silo got sleepy, he slept. And when Silo was done sleeping and sitting, he swam, and Roy sat. Day after day, Silo and Roy sat on the rock. But nothing happened. Then Mr. Gramsay got an idea. He found an egg that needed to be cared for, and he brought it to Roy and Silo's nest. Roy and Silo knew just what to do. They moved the egg to the center of their nest. Every day they turned it so each side stayed warm. Some days Roy sat while Silo went for food. Other days it was Silo's turn to take care of their egg. They sat in the morning and they sat at night. They sat through lunchtime and swim time and supper. They sat at the beginning of the month and they sat at the end of the month, and they sat all the days in between. Until one day they heard a sound coming from inside their egg. Beep, 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 it said. Roy and Silo called back, squawk, squawk, beep, beep. Suddenly a tiny hole appeared in the egg shell. And then, crack, out came their very own baby. She had fuzzy white feathers and a funny black beak. Now Roy and Silo were fathers. We'll call her Tango, Mr. Gramsay decided, because it takes two to make a tango. Roy and Silo taught Tango how to sing for them when she was hungry. They fed her food from their beaks. They snuggled her in their nest at night. Tango was the very first penguin in the zoo to have two daddies. Soon Tango grew strong enough to leave the nest. Roy and Silo took her for a swim, just like all the other penguin families. And all the children who came to the zoo could see Tango and her two fathers playing in the penguin house with the other penguins. Hooray, Roy, hooray, Silo, welcome, Tango, they cheered. At night, the three penguins returned to their nests. They snuggled together, and like all the other penguins in the penguin house, and all the other animals in the zoo, and all the families in the big city around them, they went to sleep. Now we will sing the children to their program and continue with ours. As you know, I am Nancy Tepper, and one of the people I consulted as I was thinking what to say this morning was Lynn Carey, who was formerly the director of the Ames Public Library and is currently the president of Raising Readers in Story County. She was kind enough to lend me the shirt I am wearing, so I want everybody to be sure to notice it. The book I just read, And Tango Makes Three, is one of my favorites. It exemplifies our UU values of love, caring, and purposefully celebrating diversity. Sadly, since it was published in 2005, it has probably constantly been on the banned books list. According to the American Library Association, it was banned on the list consistently from 2000 to 2019. As most of you probably know, legislatures around the country have laws passed or pending to curtail access to many books in schools and libraries. Unfortunately, if a concern is raised by one parent, that can be enough to have it banned in that school. And in Iowa, our governor proposed legislation, and I think it was passed, to say if a book was banned in one school, it should be banned in all schools in the state. Much of the content of the books that are banned is related to LGBTQ concerns, which is particularly sad because children and teens need this information as they form their gender and sexual identities. According to the National Alliance for the Mentally Ill, NAMI, LGBTQ teens are 6 times as likely to experience symptoms of depression than the general population. And that's not because of being gay or trans, but because of the hostility around them. Books addressing the endemic racism in our society, also a prime UU concern, are also being targeted. Really, the issue is that all children, not just those of a different color or heritage, not just those questioning their gender identity or sexual orientation, need access to information at specific times in their development. We as adults, if we have to wait a week to get a banned book or wait a year, it's not such a big deal. But with kids, there are windows and they need the information at the right time. Our RE leaders this past year, Riley and Gabby, spent a great deal of time revamping the children's section of our Dustin Berger library this past year. They called books with dated content and reorganized the categories to make it easier to find books by subject. They ordered many new books, largely from banned books lists. They have compiled a wish list, which is available in our library. I find it terribly disheartening to see these restrictions happening, and I think it would take time to turn them around. Many groups, including the ACLU, are prioritizing actions to curtail restrictions. Here in Ames, Dog-Eared Books has taken an active stance and has a section called Banned Books. The ACLU has organized banned books clubs. One thing we can do, though, as individuals, is that if we're considering giving a book to a child, you consider some of the banned books as options. Speaking of my personal experience from books, I come from a family where books were prioritized from the earliest years. I rarely went anywhere without a book in hand. Reading certainly opened up worlds to me and impacted my values as I grew up. My parents participated in and even formed book groups. It has been a joy to be part of the UU Women's Book when I was able to over the years. It meets on Monday nights, and that's also when Central Iowa Symphony meets. So I had to make a choice. The opportunity to discuss ideas with such a fine group of women has been wonderful. And I've been exposed to books I never would have chosen on my own. What a wonderful opportunity is. And somebody in the last day or so suggested that when we pick our books for next year, we pick banned books to read. So I'm just throwing it out there, somebody suggested that. Thank you, Barbie Greenlaw, for establishing this group and keeping it going all these years.
Thank you, Nancy. One way that each of us can help make the world a better place is by financially supporting organizations that matter. Each year, our congregation votes on who our offertory recipients will be. For the month of May, half of the non-pledge offertory will be given to the Iowa Arboretum's Treehouse Village Project, which strives to be an inspiring educational and recreational resource, highlighting the value of trees and other native plants. For some of us, the memories of tree houses and reading are closely situated near another childhood favorite. So let us settle in as we share this time with our friend, LeVar.
Butterfly in the sky, I can go twice as high. Take a look, it's in a book, a reading rainbow. I can go anywhere, friends to know and ways to grow, a reading rainbow. I can be anything. Take a look, it's in a book, a reading rainbow.
sky. I can go twice as high. Take a look, it's in a book, a reading rainbow.
I can go anywhere. Friends to know and ways to grow. A reading rainbow. I can be anything. Take a look, it's in a book. A reading rainbow. I can go anywhere. Friends to know and ways to grow. A reading rainbow. I can be anything. Take a look, it's in a book. A reading rainbow. A reading rainbow. A reading rainbow. A reading rainbow. A reading
That brings back so many memories. And it feels like such a contrast to where some are today. Because we're in an age when some want to assess reading proficiency with stopwatches. Instead, hear these words by Thomas Newkirk in his Credo on reading. I believe in the power and pleasure of slow reading. I believe in the importance of sound in reading, of rhythm, emphasis, even silence. And that when we fail to hear these sounds, even internally, we have lost something important. I believe in authors and my relationship to them, and that all serious relationships require commitment and attention. I believe this capacity for attentive reading is a central mission of education, one that unites all fields of study. Indeed, I believe most learning is about being deliberate and slowing down. Otherwise, we are only reinforcing what we already know. I believe that slow reading runs counter to a media culture that stresses speed, distraction, and a loss of history. I believe in works of literature that have endured, and that it is a great gift to students to make this work accessible and meaningful. I also believe in the great contemporary literature, which is written for all ages, and think it critical to acknowledge these writers, as the song advises, in their living years. And I look forward to the time when we return to naming schools, parks, and bridges after authors. All this, I believe. The sharing of joys and sorrows and milestones is one way we keep the ritual and practice of holding one another in community. We speak what is in our hearts because there is power in standing together in these moments. On this Memorial Day weekend, I light our first candle in honor and memory of the members of our armed forces who gave their lives defending our country. We're all connected to someone who has served: a grandparent, a parent, sibling, partner, friend. It's important that we remember the sacrifices they made, and we will honor them best by eliminating injustices and dismantling inequalities as we work to make the world a better place. To share your joy or sorrow, please use a microphone, include your name, and I will light a candle for you. We will first hear from those in Fellowship Hall. Not every joy or sorrow can be shared openly. You may not yet have the voice to express the depth of your pain or the height of your celebration. And for you, I light this final candle. Know that your life and experiences matter, and that together our lights shine brighter. And before we sing Ancient Mother, let us pause and silently hold these past few moments in our thoughts.
Ancient Mother, I hear you calling. Ancient Mother, I hear your song. Ancient Mother, I feel your laughter. Ancient Mother, I taste your tears.
Chapter 2. The description of our program today emphasizes books, which I'll bet automatically conjures an image in your mind of a stack of pieces of paper sewn together and enclosed in a hardcover for protection, which contain within all sorts of symbols that mean something to you when you look at them. I want to spend a few minutes expanding that view. It's a good bet that humans have been creating stories for as long as they have had language. Gilgamesh is likely the story of a human memory dating back thousands of years to the stupendous floods that occurred at the end of the last ice age. Some scholars propose that the stories of little people, fairies, leprechauns, and the like that are found in so many European folk traditions are based on the races of small hominids that we have recently realized went extinct only after we Homo sapiens arrived on the scene. The existence of very old stories is no surprise. The way the human brain is wired makes stories possibly the most effective way to organize and preserve and pass on knowledge from one person to another. Stories are very good at persuasion, too, and that is why letters from charities describe the plight of a specific named person or family as they implore you to support their particular assistance program. There were many ways to tell stories before writing was invented that still exist today, even in cultures where most people can read and write. There are folk tales told in every culture. Anansi the spider in Africa, coyote in Western American Indian societies, Brer Rabbit in the American South, Norse sagas, Scheherazade and Sinbad in Arabic-speaking countries, Mother Goose and nursery rhymes in the British Isles. All began as part of oral traditions. The invention of written language made it possible not only to pass on knowledge and ideas to people far removed from you, both in space and time, it also increased exponentially the likelihood that that knowledge transfer will be accurate. A sober lesson about that can be drawn from the hilarious examples of the party game telephone that each of us probably played at one time or another. Now, there have been many ways to write facts and ideas down: on reeds pounded into papyrus, wet clay inscribed with sticks, animal skins imprinted with oak gall ink applied by quills extracted from the wings of birds, rocks incised with metal chisels, Lots of innovation and invention, certainly, but much of it was so expensive or time-consuming that it was available only to the very wealthy. And then came movable type and the printing press and Gutenberg, whom we remember for making the production of written language potentially available to the masses. And books, as we know them, became first a possibility and eventually a part of our daily lives. Of course, readily available written and printed material meant that it became much more important for everyone to be able to read and write. And the ability to read meant that you had many more opportunities for earning a living and entertaining new ideas of government and human betterment. It was obvious that literacy gave such independence and power to persons who were charged with toiling in fields and factories without being fairly paid, that teaching them to read was actively discouraged. And in the case of slaves in the United States, was forbidden by law. And now we have moved beyond printing on paper as the preferred method of passing on knowledge. In this digital age, we've retained the word book, but have applied it to new technologies. Books on tape, books on CD, and now books online. Read or listened to on the digital device of your choice. This has made it possible for you to carry around the entire Encyclopedia Britannica. In fact, any source of knowledge that has been digitized and loaded onto the internet on a device you keep in your pocket. Could Gutenberg have imagined such a thing? So enjoy your books, however you prefer to consume them. They make it possible for you to engage with the thoughts and ideas that make you truly human. And they are the source of power that makes it possible for you to engage with the UU principles, especially the fourth, the free and responsible search for truth and meaning, and the fifth, which includes the use of the democratic process in our congregations and society at large. And now, stand, if you like or are able, for the singing of our next hymn, one of my absolute favorites, My Life Flows On. It's number 108.
My life goes on in endless song above earth's lamentations. I hear the river far off hymn that is a new creation. Through all the tumult and
I'm Carol Elbert, and I'm a retired librarian. I've loved books and reading for as long as I can remember. It probably started with our mother reading to us when we were children, and Mom loved books too. After I figured out that I wanted to be a librarian, I got a master's degree at the University of Washington in Seattle, and then I worked as an elementary media specialist for several years. Later, I found my dream job as the Youth Services Coordinator at Ames Public Library. Being a librarian did not mean that I sat around and read all day. In fact, at work, I was usually too busy doing other things, but it did mean that I was surrounded by books. When my own children were young, of course I read to them. I had Goodnight Moon memorized, and we always had to find the mouse in the picture before we could turn the page. What I hadn't known ahead of time was how useful reading could be as a parenting strategy. The right book could help a child settle down to sleep at bedtime. A book could help us talk about difficult subjects like the death of a grandparent. When everyone was cranky, including me, reading together could help us change the atmosphere for the better. I've always kept lists of books I want to read, books I have read, books by subject. I wish I could tell you that I have a great system for tracking what I read, a searchable database that allows me to find books that I've read by author, by genre, by subject, by period of history. But actually, my method is very low tech. For over 30 years, I've kept reading journals. I use blank page books, and I write down the title, the author, the bibliographic information, notes about the book, maybe why I chose to read that book, sometimes quotes, and the date that I finished reading it. This is for my own pleasure. I can refer to my notes before a book club discussion, and I can look back through my journal to find gift ideas before Christmas. I enjoy looking back through these journals, and I have a shelf full of them. Some readers prefer nonfiction, some prefer fiction. I find that I like both. If I start a book and am not enjoying it, I will give it about 60 pages, and if I'm still not liking it, I put it away. There will always be more books that I want to read. Books for children and young adults continue to interest me. I read a lot of mysteries. I like learning about history. When I prepare for a trip, I read about places that I will visit, and then when I come home, I do more related reading. My trip scrapbooks always include reading lists. In stressful times, like that January 6th, I find that I like rereading old favorites. I want the comfort of spending time with likable characters and the security of knowing how it's going to end. Books are an important part of my life. Books take me to times and places that I'll never be able to visit. They help me learn about places that I have visited. They introduce me to people that I will never meet and help me know more about people that I may meet someday. Books introduce me to new ideas, help me understand challenging subjects. And sometimes I read for simple escapism, where I know the problems are not mine to solve, and that everything will work out in the end.
Thank you, Carol. So the importance and joy of reading is something that I hope we all share. And to celebrate that, we are inviting you into a word communion. For those in Fellowship Hall who'd like to participate, please come forward and share a quote from the basket. And while they are lining up, and hopefully they'll line up, we have some quotes ready to share from some of our Zoom participants.
You don't have to burn books to destroy a culture. Just get people to stop reading them. Ray Bradbury.
Thank you, Sam. Oh, we had one more. Looks like we have a good crew ready to go.
Reading is an exercise in empathy, an exercise in walking in someone else's shoes for a while. Mallory Blackman.
Reading is important. If you know how to read, then the whole world opens up to you. Barack Obama.
Reading is escape and the opposite of escape. It's a way to make contact with reality after a day of making things up, and it's a way of making contact with someone else's imagination after a day that's all too real. Nora Ephron.
Have books happened to you? Unless your answer to that question is yes, I'm unsure how to talk to you. Haruki Murakami.
If you don't like to read, you haven't found the right book. J.K. Rowling.
A great book should leave you with many experiences and slightly exhausted at the end. You live several lives while reading. William Styron.
Books and doors are the same thing. You open them and you go through into another world. Jeanette Winterson.
Show me a family of readers, and I will show you the people who move the world. Napoleon Bonaparte.
Writing and reading decrease our sense of isolation. They deepen and widen and expand our sense of life. They feed the soul. When writers make us shake our heads with the exactness of their prose and their truths, and even make us laugh about ourselves or life, our buoyancy is restored. We are given a shot at dancing with, or at least clapping along with, the absurdity of life instead of being squashed by it over and over again. It's like singing on a boat during a terrible storm at sea. You can't stop the raging storm, but singing can change the hearts and spirits of people who are together on that ship. Anne Lamont.
Reading makes immigrants of us all. It takes us away from home, but more important, it finds homes for us everywhere. Jean Rhys.
I find television very educating. Every time someone turns on a set, I go into the other room and read a book. Groucho Marx.
Read a lot. Expect something big, something exalting or deepening from a book. No book is worth reading that isn't worth rereading. Susan Sontag.
Reading fiction is important. It is a vital means of imagining a life other than our own, which in turn makes us more empathetic beings. Following complex storylines stretches our brains beyond the 140 characters of soundbite thinking, and staying within the world of a novel gives us the ability to be quiet and alone, two skills that are disappearing faster than the polar ice caps. Amity.
Salvation is certainly among the reasons I read. Reading and writing have always pulled me out of the darkest experiences in my life. Stories have given me a place in which to lose myself. They have allowed me to remember. They have allowed me to forget. They have allowed me to imagine different endings and better possible worlds. Roxane Gay.
I guess a big part of serious fiction's purpose is to give the reader, who like all of us is sort of marooned in her own skull, to give her imaginative access to other selves. David Foster Wallace.
That is part of the beauty of literature. You discover that your longings are universal longings, that you are not lonely and isolated from anyone. You belong. F. Scott Fitzgerald.
And thank you for all that was shared. So please rise in body or spirit for our closing song, number 346, Come Sing a Song with Me. For those of you who are following along with a hymnal, or if you have the song memorized, we are adding a fifth verse, Come Read a Book with Me.
Sing a song. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me. That I might know and I'll bring you home when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you home when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come shine in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you home when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you home when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come read a book with me. Come read a book with me. Come read a book with me, that I might know your mind. and I'll bring you home when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time.
Read a book together indeed. So please check out the book group and the many other ways that you can more deeply connect to this community. As we extinguish this flame, may you carry with you the light of all that has been shared. And I leave you with the words by Reverend Scott Taylor. May the call of creativity arise again from within. May your own creative unfolding leave you in awe. May the beauty that has blessed you lead you to create beauty for those you love and those you do not know. May the creativity that arises between us help to birth the world anew. Go in peace.